when Taiwan's president can enter the White House, the political goal we're pursuing will have been achieved. Why is that a contentious thing to say?
I think the biggest challenge for Lai and why those comments were perhaps read with such high brows in the United States is because of Lai's past of having stated much more directly that he is pro-independence leaning. It's frustrating from the Lai camp, I'm sure, because they've spent the last 6 months to a year really trying their best to convince not just Washington, D.C., but most of the world that Lai is in fact a pro-status quo presidential candidate and that he is going to be essentially a Tsai Ing-wen 2.0 if elected president. And even though he's starting to convince a lot of people in D.C., comments like this, even if this was completely not his intention, will be colored through his past comments.
I mean, you mentioned these past comments. I should clarify that, you know, this famous quote that he had in 2017, I believe it was, he says he described himself as a political worker who supports Taiwanese independence. I mean, how has that colored the view of him since, at home and abroad?
So for a lot of Deep Green supporters, they've always favored Lai, especially when we think back to, say, the 2019 primary in the DPP where Lai Ching-te challenged Tsai for the presidency. A lot of Deep Green voters were more supportive of Lai than Tsai because they saw him as more pro-independence than Tsai. Over the last few years, he has over and overstated that he supports the status quo and goes by the very standard DPP talking line of Taiwan is already independent as the ROC and that no further need for formalized independence is necessary.
But I think it's worth pointing out the two sides of this one China policy. Could you kind of explain that for us?
Yeah, so, we think about what the United States' goal is in trying to maintain stability in the Cross Strait, and a lot of it has been focused on preventing China from unilaterally taking action to change the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. But the other side of that policy from the United States' perspective is to also stop Taiwan from unilaterally declaring independence, which is something that many in D.C. fear would happen under a Lai presidency. Now, of course, it's worth noting that even if Lai is elected president, a sitting president in Taiwan cannot unilaterally declare independence. Taiwan is a democracy. There are rules and regulations to these sorts of things. I think there's a bit of a boogeyman in D.C. of this idea that if Lai becomes president, then the next day there will be total chaos and you'll have pro-independence people running Taiwan. And that's just not true.